Welcome to another CAS Aviation Deep Dive, where we take a look at some interesting developments from the world of aviation. Buckle up, because we've got a lot to cover today.
Yeah, we've got stories from all over the world today.
So let's get right to it with our first stop. We're going all the way up north to Greenland. Now, when you think about big airlines, you probably don't think about Air Greenland, right?
Not usually, no.
But they've actually got some pretty big plans. They're looking to buy a new Airbus A320neo in 2026.
And that comes after getting a new A330-800N in 2022 and a Dash 8Q200 just last year. So that's a pretty serious fleet upgrade for them.
Yeah, that's a lot of new planes, especially for an airline that operates in such a harsh environment. Makes you wonder why they go for the A320neo,
Yeah.
especially with all the limitations they have with runways.
Well, the A320neo is actually really versatile. Think about it. A lot of the runways in Greenland are really short, so they need smaller planes like the Dash 8 to operate there. But with the A320neo, they can have the same pilots flying both that and the A330. That mixed rating capability saves them a lot of money on training and also gives them a lot of flexibility.
Oh, that's a really good point. But what happens when those Dash 8s eventually need to be replaced? Is there even an aircraft out there that can handle those short runways?
Well, that's where they're being really clever. They're using something called wet leases to fill in the gaps. Basically, what that means is they partner with other airlines like Icelandair to operate some routes using the partner's aircraft and crew.
Wet leases.
Yeah, it's basically like a short-term rental.
Interesting. So it sounds like Air Greenland is really thinking long-term here, carefully planning for all the challenges that come with flying in such a remote place.
Absolutely. They're a great example of a small airline that's using strategic partnerships and smart fleet management to compete in a tough market.
Well, from the Arctic Circle, let's head south to the U.S., where American Airlines is facing a different kind of problem. You know those Boeing 787 delivery delays that we've been talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it looks like they're finally catching up with American ships.
It seems like those delays are impacting the whole industry. Americans already had to suspend several routes between Dallas and Frankfurt in June, New York and Madrid in July, and Miami and Paris from May to July.
Wow, that's a lot of changes. I bet that's causing a lot of headaches for passengers who already booked flights on those routes.
It's definitely going to be a challenge for American to keep everyone happy.
It really makes you wonder if this is going to change how airlines plan their fleets in the future.
Yeah, it's definitely highlighting the risks of relying too much on just one type of aircraft. Having a more diverse fleet and some backup plans seem like really important lessons to learn from all this.
Well, let's leave the U.S. and head over to Europe now, where Ryanair's been having quite a week.
Yeah, a real roller coaster.
First up, they had a bit of a legal setback. That case they had with Booking.com took a turn. A U.S. Court of Appeals reversed a ruling that had been in Ryanair's favor.
Oh, wow. This case has been going on for a while, and it's a pretty serious one. It involves accusations that Booking.com violated the U.S. Computer Fraud and Abuse Act.
Yeah, that's a pretty big deal.
It's really complicated, but this reversal shows just how complex the relationship is between online travel platforms and airlines.
For sure. But it wasn't all bad news for Ryanair this week. Remember that dispute they had with Aer Lingus over their plans for a new maintenance hangar in Dublin?
Oh, yeah. What happened there?
Well, they finally settled it. They got the go-ahead to build a new hangar.
Well, that's good news for them. Expanding their MRO capabilities is going to be a big advantage.
But then there's the news about their base in Billund, Denmark. That's closing down because of a new air travel tax.
Oh, wow.
It just goes to show you how much government policies can affect airlines.
Yeah.
Well, let's move on now to South Korea, where Korean Air just got two brand new Airbus A350-900s.
Oh, no.
They're already flying them to Japan. And the plan is to use them for routes to Europe later this year.
That's a big step for Korean Air. It's part of their fleet modernization. And it's also part of integrating with Asiana Airlines, which they acquired recently.
I didn't realize they were doing that.
Oh, yeah. And they've also got orders in for A350-1000s. They're really becoming a strong player in the Asia-Pacific region.
It makes you wonder how this is going to affect the other airlines in the area and what new routes we might see in the future.
Yeah, it's definitely going to shake things up a bit.
Well, that's it for our first stop on our global aviation tour today. We've covered a lot of ground so far.
We have, but there's still a lot more to come, so stay tuned.
Stick around and we'll be right back with more news from the world of aviation. Speaking of shaking things up, let's head down under to Australia, where there's been a big leadership change at Airservices Australia.
Oh, that's right. Rob Sharp has officially taken over as the CEO.
So he's not the interim CEO anymore.
Nope, he's the permanent CEO now. He's been doing the job on an interim basis since last year.
That's a pretty big job, right? I mean, he's in charge of air traffic management
Right.
and aviation rescue and firefighting for the whole country.
It's huge responsibility for sure.
So what kind of experience does he have?
Well, he's been in the aviation industry for a long time. He was the CEO of Tiger Air in Virgin Australia,
Wow.
and he was even the Secretary of Transport for New South Wales.
So it sounds like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he definitely has the experience and expertise to handle this role.
Okay, so let's go back to American Airlines for a minute. Remember those 787 delays we were talking about?
Yeah, what about them?
Well, there's another development in that story. It has to do with their new business class seats.
Oh, yeah, the flagship suites.
Right, those ones.
Yeah.
What's happening with them?
Well, because of those 787 delays, American has had to push back the rollout of the new seats again.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's a real shame. Those new seats were supposed to be a big selling point for them.
It's like a double whammy for them. Not only are they having to cut routes because they don't have enough planes, but now they can't even introduce a major product upgrade that was supposed to give them an edge over their competitors.
It really shows how much these delays are impacting the airline, and it also highlights how important it is for airlines to be flexible and adaptable.
Okay, so while we're talking about legal battles, let's go back to Europe for a minute. There's been another development in that Ryanair Booking.com case.
Oh, what happened?
Well, Booking.com won a pretty big victory.
Really?
Yeah, a U.S. Court of Appeals overturned some previous rulings that had been in Ryanair's favor.
So what does that mean for Ryanair?
It's a pretty big setback for them.
And for other airlines, too.
Okay.
This case could have a big impact on how airlines work with online travel platforms.
It's really complicated.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that the whole industry is watching very closely.
Sure.
But let's move on to some slightly better news for Ryanair. Remember that dispute they had with Aer Lingus over their plans for a new maintenance hangar in Dublin?
Yeah, I was wondering what happened with that.
Well, Aer Lingus dropped their objections, so Ryanair's free to go ahead with their plans.
Wow, that's a big win for them.
Right.
Yeah, expanding their MRO capabilities is a really smart move. It gives them more control over their operations, and it could save them a lot of money in the long run.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Ryanair's challenges this week, but they've also had some wins.
True.
It seems like they're always in the news for something.
They're definitely not afraid to shake things up.
Well, let's shift gears now and go back to Korean Air. And those new A350-900s they just got.
They're beautiful planes.
It's more than just a fleet upgrade for them, though, right?
Oh, absolutely. This is a strategic move to strengthen their position in the Asia-Pacific region, especially after acquiring Asiana Airlines.
Right. It's like they're using these new planes to bring the two airlifts together.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
remember, they've got even more A350s on order, both the 900 and the larger one, 1000.
Wow. They're really going all in on the A350.
It shows how serious they are about becoming a major player in the long-haul market.
It's really interesting to see how Korean Air is evolving.
Yeah, they're definitely one to watch.
It's fascinating to see how these airlines are adapting and growing.
Oh.
But what does all this mean for us as passengers?
Well, at the end of the day, the aviation industry is all about serving passengers. So all these changes we've been talking about, they're going to have a real impact on how we travel. For example, those fuel-efficient planes like the A350-900, those could lead to lower fares and more direct routes, which would make flying more affordable and convenient for everyone.
Yeah, that would be great. But what about all the challenges? The legal battles, the delays, the constant pressure to make a profit? How do those things affect us?
Those challenges definitely create uncertainty and sometimes even frustration for passengers. But they also show how important it is to choose airlines that really care about customer service. Airlines that are reliable and transparent. You know, like how an airline handles delays and cancellations? That tells you a lot about how much they value their passengers.
It's all about how they respond to those tough situations.
Exactly. And as passengers, we have a lot of power. We can share our experiences and hold airlines accountable. We can choose to fly with airlines that align with our values and treat us well.
So what can we, as aviation enthusiasts, learn from all this?
Yeah.
What should we be paying attention to as the industry continues to change?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that the aviation industry is becoming more and more interconnected. What happens in one part of the world can have a ripple effect everywhere else. So it's important to stay informed about global trends and new technology and changes in regulations. That way we can understand the bigger picture.
It's like we need to be more than just passengers. We need to be informed participants in the aviation world.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about being an aviation enthusiast. We get to be a part of this dynamic industry and watch it evolve right in front of us.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world of aviation.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you enjoyed hearing about all the latest developments. Until next time, keep your eyes on the skies.
And safe travels.